Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is February the 27th, 2026. Hopefully this episode finds you well, in good spirits and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Happy Friday to ya. Hopefully this episode finds you in a good space, in a good place. Whether you're listening to this on a Friday or a Sunday, Monday, whatever day. Hopefully things feel very Friday for you. As for me, it's been a good day. It's been a great day for the most part. A little bit of bad notes, but we'll cover that in total. But overall, we can start from the top. I woke up nice and easy, and got myself together, got myself put together for a day at work for a nice frying Friday, and we get to work, clock in, no problems, no worries. There's like a decent amount of work. The only issue is they hadn't swapped out the crusher, but it wasn't really even pushed that hard. So like we had a good amount of room to work with. So I wasn't freaking out. I wasn't worried. And then I think maybe around like 9 o'clock or so, they came to swap it out. It's like about an hour into my shift. Overall, W there. Pretty much was able to get all the work done. And as I was doing the work, I kind of realized I'm like, yeah, there's a good chance I'm going to wrap this up like early. And I kind of want to leave early because the way my weekend is looking, it would just be nice to kind of get after things, sooner than later. So as I wrapped everything up and I was, literally thinking like, okay, I'll maybe kill a little bit more time or something like that. Maybe try to find my supervisor and maybe get out of here. We'll see. A supervisor came through to kind of check in, and I asked, and they're like, oh, okay, I'll go ahead and ask for you. My supervisor lets me know, hey, you got the green light, you can get out of here. So I was like, all right, let's go. I got out, I think, literally 2:30. So like I got out like around 2 hours early. So with that time, I just figured, hey, let's just go ahead and hit the gym really quick, get a nice quick pump and a little cardio, and then see if I can get the podcast episode in, because that was my plan. That was my hope if I had the opportunity. So that's what we did. Went to the gym. I was able to get on the Smith machine. I'm still keeping it pretty medium light for sure. Not pushing over 225 today. And, overall, not feeling too bad. Still sore in my lateral area, but we're making do, doing okay. Did a little bit of core work, and then I did 15 minutes on the Stairmaster. Got out of there. That might have been like my shortest like gym session, maybe period. But overall, not bad, not too bad. I feel like I made the most of it, so that felt good. Came home, had my stretch, had my little snack, did some research, and here we are, ready to go. Now I mentioned, what was the bad part? Sounds like you had a pretty good, Friday. Well, my stomach has just not been great pretty much all day. And I didn't really expect it to, because it's not like I ate anything crazy. But I think it's just because I had the Chipotle when I did, Tuesday, and then, kind of ate pretty steadily throughout the week, which is good. I think it's just one of those days where you just it all comes back to bite you. Maybe something to that effect. I don't know. But yeah, my stomach just hasn't felt really wunderbar all day, but we've been moving okay. We've been grooving all right. So, that's been the bad part. But overall, we're okay. We're good. But yeah, let's go ahead and do our startup, and let's get into some news. I think I'm keeping it a water episode today. Oh, also, this is a little bit of side gaming news. They released a trailer for the new Pokemon game, which, am I going to be buying or playing? No, I don't have a Switch. What is it, the Switch 2? But, cool to see where they're going with it. A lot of people are saying this might be, it's looking like a better game than the last one, which I didn't really play. But the starters, I don't know, they look cute. They always do, though. I'm, curious, I guess, to see what they evolve into. Yeah, there you go, a little bit of nerd corner to start us off with there. right. From The Guardian. Pakistan bombs Kabul after intensifying border clashes with Afghanistan. Pakistan bombed Afghanistan's capital of Kabul and two other provinces on Friday, hours after a cross-border attack, the latest escalation of deadly violence between the volatile neighbors who signed a Qatar-mediated ceasefire in 2025. One of the many peace moments for Donald Trump, allegedly, apparently not, but following months of tit-for-tat clashes, Afghan forces attacked Pakistani border troops on Thursday night in what the Taliban government said was retaliation for earlier deadly airstrikes. Hours later, at least 3 explosions were heard in Kabul, with both sides making different claims about the number of casualties and sites hit. Pakistan Federal Minister for Information and Broadcasting, Atullah Tarar, claimed the strikes on Friday in Kabul, Paktia, and Kandahar killed 133 Afghan Taliban officials and wounded more than 200, with further possible casualties. Now, this is a number that we're just going to run with from this article, but I have heard varying numbers, like they mentioned earlier. Some as high as like 300, but I don't know if that's necessarily Afghan Taliban, if we're talking just, actual innocent civilians. And, this is one of those situations where you're going to hear one, states saying, hey, this is our counting of it. This is how it happened according to us. And then you're going to hear the other side saying like, whoa, that's not actually how it happened. This is what you did. This is what happened. And this is what we did. So y'all know how that goes. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said Friday that his country's armed forces could crush aggressors, while the country's defense minister has proclaimed open war. In a post on X Friday, Defense Minister Khawaja Mohammad Asif said that Pakistan had hoped for peace in Afghanistan after the withdrawal of NATO forces and expected the Taliban to focus on the welfare of the Afghan people and regional stability. Let's see. Instead, he alleged the Taliban had gathered militants from around the world and begun exporting terrorism. Our patience has run out. Now it's open war between us, he said. Afghan Defense Ministry said 55 Pakistani soldiers had been killed in the border clashes on Thursday, with some bodies taken into Afghanistan, including several captured alive. It said 8 Afghan soldiers were reported killed, with 11 others wounded. The ministry reported the destruction of 19 Pakistani army posts and 2 bases. Musharraf Ali Zadai, spokesperson for Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, previously denied that any Pakistani soldiers have been captured. Relations between the neighbors have plunged in recent months, with land border crossings largely shut down since deadly fighting in October that killed more than 70 people on both sides. Islamabad accuses Afghanistan of failing to act against militant groups that carry out attacks in Pakistan, which the Taliban government denies. So there's a little bit more details there, but for the sake of time, we're going to cut story at that point. I feel like that covers most of what's been going on over the past, 24 hours or so. Obviously a very intense escalation, but it is, definitely, a ramp up of a tit for tat between these two countries. Obviously it's unfortunate that it's come to this, and because that, like you said, like I said, Pakistan's going to say, oh, well, we killed these terrorists or whatever. We killed these Afghan Taliban, people. But it's like, no, probably there's a good chance here that you killed innocent people who were just trying to live their life in Afghanistan, who are already going through a hard ass fucking time, trying to make, ends meet in a situation where you're sanctioned as fuck and, you have all these, crazy religious rules. You got a lot going on. The last thing you need is a fucking airstrike, right? Granted, who does? But you know what I'm saying? So there's that back and forth, and I'm sure the numbers are, like I said, always subject to change here. But this was one of the major stories that, like, when I woke up, turned on my, my BBC podcast, this one hit, and then there's another one that we're going to get to that hit, and I was like, okay, we definitely got to talk about these. But we're going to move on to our next story. Now, we talked about Hillary Clinton yesterday, which I said today we were going to talk about old Wet Willie, old Billy Clinton. No one calls him that. But yes, from Yahoo News, Bill Clinton testifies that he did nothing wrong during Epstein's deposition, echoing Hillary's insistence that she had no idea about his crimes. Okay. Former President Bill Clinton insisted that he had no idea about the scope of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes during a deposition with congressional investigators on Friday. I know what I saw, and more importantly, what I didn't see, he told members of the House Oversight Committee. I know what I did, and more importantly, what I didn't do. I saw nothing, and I did nothing wrong. I'm sorry, I read that shit, and I said, oh God, he's still in there. That motherfucker still, he never left. Oh no. Oh wow. I don't know, man. He's still talking that shit. Obviously speculative. I think he did see. I think he did do more than he's saying. But at the end of the day, they know that outside of any of these pictures or any of these little email conversations, there's nothing that's actually tying him to anything. So he can just do the same song and dance, run the same kind of parallel as his wife, and this is fine. They didn't even run an opening statement like Hillary Clinton did, like Les Wessner did, where he comes out and says, well, this is at least what I started off with. My Bill Clinton is maybe a little rusty, but so is he, whatever. So I don't know, man. This feels like a waste of time. I've talked about this just being a one big theater show, but it would have been nice if they actually got him on something. And that being said, I mean, we'll see what the whole deposition will be, either come sometime this weekend when the transcripts or everything gets released, or Monday or something like that. Maybe we'll come back to the story for an update if something juicy's on the paper. But I don't know. This felt very unsurprising, very anticlimactic. You get him here and he's like, yeah, no, nothing. I didn't see anything crazy. I told you, once I knew he was a bad guy, I stopped fucking with him. That's what he's going to say. Don't worry about me in the pool with Ghislaine Maxwell and that other woman, whoever, we don't know. Don't worry about that. It's not important. I didn't do anything wrong, is what you need to know. Okay? All right. And then where do you go from there? Where's the pickup? Where's the legal ramifications from this now? So I don't know. We'll see. Let's move on. We got some more news. We got to talk about fucking the Trump admin, really the Pentagon, versus AI, versus Anthropic, really, and the ramifications of that. But yeah, let's start this in Axios. Pentagon takes first step towards blacklisting Anthropic. The Pentagon asked two major defense contractors on Wednesday to provide an assessment of their reliance on Anthropic's AI model Claude, a first step towards a potential designation of Anthropic as a supply chain risk, Axios has learned. That penalty is usually reserved for companies with adversarial countries, such as Chinese tech giant Huawei. Using it to punish a leading American tech firm, particularly one with military itself, is currently reliant, would be unprecedented. The Pentagon reached out to Boeing and Lockheed Martin on Wednesday to ask about their exposure to Anthropic. Two sources with knowledge of those conversations said. Boeing Defense, Space and Security, a division of Boeing, has no active contracts with Anthropic, a spokesperson said. A Boeing executive told Axios, we sought their partnership in the past and ultimately could not come to an agreement. They were somewhat reluctant to work with the defense industry. Which is a motif that has gotten us here. Apparently, they have said, hey, you can use our technology to some extent. Apparently, Claude was being used through Palantir in the operation to capture Maduro, but there were limitations involved, and there still are limitations here. And they're saying, hey, we don't want you to override that. And the Pentagon is saying, Pete Hegseth is saying, look, you have to give us that, otherwise this doesn't work. But don't worry, we're not going to do anything untoward with that. And they're like, well, what if you do something like spy on American civilians? That's not what we want. And they're like, don't worry, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do anything illegal, okay? But we've seen how this administration moves. We've seen how guys like Pete Hegseth are moving and grooving and rocking in the free fucking world. So yeah, maybe they do fucking do that. And they're going to tell the fucking, and Anthropic, they're going to tell Claude to fuck off if you have a problem with that. We're using this for how we want to use it. And, I think Claude, also OpenAI has said, hey, we're not going along with this as well. But they're saying, hey, at least from Claude's perspective, this is bad optics. Maybe I don't know. Or maybe it also feels like an indicator to me that they are feeling financially strong enough that they don't have to make this concession with the Trump administration, with the American military, because they have their investments in other places. They're too big to fail. Maybe they're feeling. Look, they are the bubble. So whatever. I don't know. I did find this very interesting that we've come to this loggerheads here. But also, part of the fallout is that potentially Grok gets involved, which is X. Elon Musk's X, Grok X, AI. So that's fun. I can't imagine a drone being powered by that shit. And it also then re-triggered the conversation in my head that we had about the whole Mecha Hitler thing that happened on, once again, X. I don't know if they call it the Everything app anymore, but whatever. Mecha Hitler might still exist, and maybe he's going to be in our military software, and that'll be so fun, won't it? Won't it be so cool? That'll be the most patriotic thing you could do. Oh, yeah. So that's a big conversation. I kind of just started, going on to, a little bit of a free mode there. But one more article I wanted to hit related to this from the Associated Press. Trump orders all federal agencies to phase out use of Anthropic technology. So this was as of today. President Donald Trump said Friday that he was ordering all federal agencies to stop using Anthropic's technology following the company's unusually public dispute with the Pentagon over artificial intelligence safety. Trump's comments came just over an hour before the Pentagon's deadline for Anthropic to allow unrestricted military use of its AI technology or face consequences, and nearly 24 hours after CEO Dario Amodei said his company cannot in good conscience accede to the Defense Department's demands. So that's looking like where we're at right now. Trump saying we don't need it, we don't want it, and will not do any business with them again. So, I mean, maybe, but he wrote that probably on Truth Social, which doesn't mean shit for fuck. At the end of the day, it only matters if it actually is put into law. That's what we really gotta, I guess, really go with. But it sucks because technically we live under this motherfucker's decree. It affects things. It's frustrating. God damn it. But anyway, speaking of things that Trump affects, we're not out of the Trumpverse yet. The other bombshell that hit me in the morning was the Netflix Paramount dispute over Warner Brothers. I really thought that this was going to be Netflix's to win, but there have been some developments, some big changes, and it has left Netflix apparently out of the deal. So yeah, I wanted to get into that. I wanted to cover that real quick. But yeah, let me go ahead and get another sip of water. I'm quite parched. We'll go ahead and cover this. Oh, come on, lid. Come on. All right. From CNN. Netflix shockingly bows out, leaving Paramount as the apparent Warner Brothers winner. Paramount emerged as the victor in a long months battle for Warner Brothers Discovery, after Netflix backed out of the bidding war Thursday, leaving Paramount poised to acquire Warner's vast media empire, including CNN. Netflix says it has declined to raise its offer for Warner Brothers after the Warner Brothers Discovery Board determined that Paramount has submitted a superior offer for the media giant. The deal is no longer financially attractive, so we are declining to match the Paramount Skydance bid, the streamer said, suddenly ending the corporate tug of war. With that announcement, Paramount suddenly moved much closer to taking over CNN, HBO, and the rest of the assets owned by Warner Brothers Discovery and WBD for short. So yeah, I didn't realize until I was listening to this morning that CNN was technically a part of this deal. And that with Netflix bowing out, now granted, Netflix wasn't going to acquire CNN. That wasn't a part of their part of the deal. They wanted specific parts of Warner Brothers Discovery, and Netflix wanted the whole kit, the whole caboodle. And with this, if they get it, which it looks like they will be, Paramount will be under the Ellison family brands, essentially, in their umbrella, with CBS. Which, granted, is it that different? No, you're just, subservient to a new financial master. But it's just crazy that these guys are just so openly just, collecting these motherfuckers like pretty little baubles and saying, yeah, this is free press. This is good liberal, democratic media, or pick whatever spin you want. We got you, baby. Just watch these commercials. So I love that. I love a good boneless monopoly situation. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Hooray, capitalism. The regulatory review process will take several months at a minimum, but barring any further surprises, Paramount CEO David Ellison will assemble a sprawling entertainment and news empire with dozens of TV channels, multiple movie studios, and 2 leading newsrooms. WBD CEO David Zaslav, by the way, boo David Zaslav, what a terrible dude, tomatoes for that man, wished Netflix well and extended a friendly hand toward Paramount in a statement Thursday evening. Once our board votes to adopt the Paramount merger agreement, it will create tremendous value for our shareholders, Zaslav said, alluding to the fact that WBD's stock price more than doubled during the months-long bidding war. Paramount most recently offered $31 per share. Let's see, I want to skip ahead a little bit here. More blah, blah, blah about, stock numbers, yada, yada, yada. Okay, but yeah, the Trump factor. The change in fortunes came on the same day that Netflix CEO or co-CEO Todd Sarandos held meetings with the White House. Sarandos was seen exiting the White House complex with a glum look on his face. Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren, a staunch critic of both Netflix and Paramount bids, immediately questioned whether Sarandos's discussions with the Trump administration officials had something to do with Thursday's sudden change. Well, yeah, what do you think? I'm skipping that quote. I wanted to get to what I hear is. This to me was another juicy part that I think was kind of like, the signs are here. You're not getting the deal you thought you were. Netflix is not going to be worth your fucking time. Last weekend, Trump publicly told Netflix to remove board member Susan Rice, a former Obama advisor, or pay the consequences, renewing the prospect that he would put his thumb on the corporate scale. So I think that and he also wanted CNN to be sold. I didn't know that he was very adamant about that. But like once you start hearing him actually put input about this, he actually starts influencing the conversation. I think Netflix then realizes, okay, we got to put on a brave face because we don't want this guy to run us like he's running all these other companies. But we also do not want to get caught up in this quagmire because he's now not going to let us have it. And we have to now continue this bidding war, which we didn't even want to get into. We actually have a claim for this. We got the deal. Like, we just have to kind of ride the shit out. And they realize nah, we're under siege here. It's not worth it. So, I mean, this is one of those situations where we clearly get to see a strong example of the Ellisons who literally bought and sold influence for Trump. And then now he's in power like they wanted, like everything is falling into place. And then you get to see the influence actually work itself out. And they're like, yeah, now we get to get what we want. And anyone who's going up against us can get fucked. And smooth as silk, baby. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Another deal. That is the art of the deal. I fucking guess, man. So in a way, I almost want to say it's a shame, but it's not like I'm rooting for any of these fucking sides. Just like with Trump or the Trump admin versus AI. I would love for these motherfuckers to just Godzilla themselves and take themselves out, but that's not how this works. It's just we wind up losing some way, shape, or form. So I'm sure in this way, it's no different. I'm sure Netflix is just crying on their bed of money about it, but whatever. So it goes. So it fucking goes. This was pretty big news to me. I was like, all right, I want to cover it. All right, we have one more thing I wanted to yap about. I have a burp. Oh, excuse me. Whew, thank you for letting me work that out. Okay. This was something I had mentioned offhand on the podcast when I talked about Peter Mandelson, getting arrested, losing his position and all that, and how that triggered a by-election, or at least that there was a by-election was happening around the time. I don't know, maybe it didn't trigger it. My bad. Whatever. I'm kind of dumb sometimes. But essentially, this was a vote that was taking place, and I was like, okay, cool. But there was an outcome that was pretty surprising, and I was like, all right, let's go ahead and take it to the UK and talk about a bit of maybe good news, but a green news, so to speak. But yeah, let me go ahead and take our last break, and then we'll close it out. How's that sound? Okay. We got to talk a little weather before we close out too. The weather finally hit 64 degrees. Ooh, the Midwesterner in me is like, oh, let me get in a tank top. Let me get on some shorts. Now, I'm not going to take it that far, but it was nice. Nice. Windows partially down, sunglasses on. Yes. Rolling down the Kirkway. Okay. From the BBC. Starmer accepts voters are impatient for change as Greens celebrate seismic by-election win. The Greens' by-election win in Gorton and Ditton is a seismic victory, the party's leader, Zach Polonsky, says. Prime Minister Keir Starmer calls the result very disappointing, but says he understands voters are ready for change after Labour were pushed into third place by Reform. The new Green MP Hannah Spencer, a 34-year-old plumber, says voters rejected hate and embraced hope as she pledges to end local fly tipping and introduce rent controls. This result must be a wake-up call, says Starmer's former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. Now, apparently this was like a Labour stronghold. They normally do not lose this area. I think they hadn't lost here since 1931. So a lot of history is being made in the UK lately. It is worth noting, though, that like Nigel Farage, the Reform Party, were a strong like third here. Or maybe they were even a second. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, maybe I should have looked at the numbers before I got on here. But that being said, I'm happy to see that they lost. And of course, in like typical populist fascist fucking fashion, they had to be like, hey, there's something wrong with the vote. And they said that there were claims of family voting. So, and I got to be honest with you, I don't know what the fuck fly tipping is, and I don't know what family voting is. I imagine it's some kind of double voting process or whatever. Actually, I do want to look up fly tipping. We're gonna learn together. Fly tipping. I know what fly fishing is, but what is fly tipping? Yes, we're going to use the Google overview or the AI overview. Yeah, I know. We're fucked up around here. We're evil. Apparently, it is the illegal dumping of waste ranging from single bags to large furniture or hazardous materials on unauthorized public or private land. And that's from a Wikipedia source. So there you go there, which makes sense. That lines up with something like a very green thing. Now, for me, I've learned a little bit of a quick crash course, if you will, on like what was a Green Party, because they've been a bit of a fringe option. But with this whole shakeup with the Peter Mandelson bullshit, with everyone looking at Keir Starmer, like, bro, you haven't done anything, and you elected the Prince of fucking Darkness to do this shit, and it's like, and you're pretending you didn't know this guy was like connected to Epstein. Come on now. So it looks like there's a bit of a reckoning at place here. I also have learned a bit too that like maybe since like something of the 90s, maybe even before, like, yes, by a lot of comparisons, you know, something like, you know, democracy in the UK, well, not really democracy, but the way government works in the UK can feel a little bit liberal, a little bit like, oh, wow, they have a socialist party, like, or a democratic socialist, whatever, you know what I'm saying, right? And I know for me, I always look like, okay, well, now the Labour Party's there, they're democratic socialists, whatever, like, this is gonna be nicer, this is gonna be cool, but it's like, it's just so similar to what we're doing. And when you see our Liberal Party, you see our Democratic Party, and it's because they've just been doing the similar playbook of, oh, we need to hollow out any of this quote unquote far left bullshit, and we need to appeal to the right, as much of the right as we can get without actually being that, so that we always look like a big viable option for when, in this situation, when the Tories start falling off, when they start falling in favor, we get this quote unquote hero vote that we're angling for. And that was this goal, and that was why they got a guy like Keir Starmer to be the guy for prime minister. And this Dilbert looking motherfucker is just like not enough. He's not doing anything. He's not selling anything. He just looks like a bad boss. So yeah, nice to see some potential change, you know, whether it be just on Fringe on the Wing or whatever. It's something new, something different, hopefully something a bit more optimistically better. You know, maybe this is their Mamdani moment. Ooh, there we go. I know I'm referencing that shit a lot. But yeah, no, I don't know. That's really all I have for today. I'm happy to be able to get an episode. Initially, I was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to podcast today, but I'm just glad to be able to make that happen. But yeah, if you'd like to help out, support the effort, I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/IsaiahNews. Become a newsie today. Free ways to hit me up, IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. Feel free to follow me or the podcast on any of the socials. Subscribe to the YouTube, follow on TikTok, follow on Spotify, follow on Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to listen. Let's see, leave a like, leave a cool comment. Sharing is always caring. all the stars are always appreciated on the Apple or the Spotify, what have you, respectively. But if you don't do any of that, that's okay. I just appreciate you hanging out and letting me yap to you. And, hopefully we get to do it soon. So, yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being a friend. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.